All right. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. I know we've still got a couple more people joining, but it is 1 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. First and foremost, thank you so much for being here today for our Fall 2020 Safety and Security Seminar. This is our first ever virtual event like this, so we appreciate y'all joining us. I know we've got a good number of people here today, and we're really excited about this. My name is Julie Elliott. I work here with Emergency Management and Safety Services. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator here. And I'm joined today by Dr. Mo McGinnis and Officer David Causey. Mo is with the Dean of Students and Officer Causey is with the UNT Police Department. Each of them will have a moment to introduce themselves as well. But before doing so, I'd like to go over just a couple of quick housekeeping things for the presentation today. First and foremost, here is our agenda. We're going to start off with just a brief introduction of the three departments that are presenting today, so you can kind of learn a little bit about what we do, how we fit into the university structure here. We do invite you to keep your camera on if you feel comfortable doing so. We do love to see faces. It helps us as presenters. Of course, if you prefer to keep it off, we understand as well. But we do ask that you do stay muted for the duration of the presentation unless you are speaking. We do ask if you have questions that you do send them in the chat. We will be moderating the chat as we go. We will try to present them as we go, kind of in between presenters. However, if we do not get to them during the presentations, we'll circle back to them after. We're happy to stay on late to discuss questions or concerns. We will also be providing our contact information in the event you would like to reach out to us later on to kind of just discuss things in more depth. So otherwise, that's all that I have today as far as introductions go. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. Mo, if you'd like to take a minute to talk about your office and what you do here on campus.
Well, happy day before Halloween, everybody. I am Mo McGinnis. I'm the Dean of Students, and my office gets to do a lot of different things. We definitely are not bored, especially with the pandemic adding to the things that we get to do every day, right? So kind of excuse my dog and my children, who are not young children. And I am having problems today. Okay, sorry. A couple things that our office does is, first and foremost, one part of the office enforces the code of student conduct. So if a student misbehaves, which, you know, we must be bored in that office because our students don't do that. We might get referrals from the UNT Police Department, a number of different things that can be referred to our office for either disruption or violation of the code. Lately, we're hearing about, you know, what do you do if a student refuses to put on a mask? We really don't want that to be a conduct issue, but there may be times that we need to have some conversations with the student. So anything in which they might violate the code of student conduct, we investigate those. We have our care team referrals, and care team is when somebody believes a student may, or faculty or staff member now, may be a threat to themselves or others. We see a significant amount of numbers here. We do have a care team coordinator, Jessica Hogue, who works with managing this process every day. Last year, I think we were up to about 640 referrals, but I want to make sure you understand about 639 of them were threats to self. We do see a significant increase in mental health issues that our students and faculty and staff do deal with. And so it's important for us, for the safety of the students, for the safety of the community, but also to make sure that we get the students on a path of making a right turn to staying in school, the assistance they need with the care team. We currently also do investigations for sexual misconduct, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. And pretty much, unless you are a confidential employee on here, I hope you all know of your obligation to report those things to our office. which then we have to, under state law, investigate, and some federal laws. Title IX has changed a little bit, but it hasn't changed our policies in regards to reporting. So I want to make sure that that is clear. We assist a number of students with issues, and as you can guess right now, that is probably one of our biggest points is helping students kind of with the struggle of things going on with the pandemic, but anything medical. So if somebody's hospitalized, car accidents, illness, some faculty are getting emails from us if somebody might be quarantined or in isolation or be ill, and then we are also seeing a number of family members who have passed away either to COVID or other situations. So we're helping students with that, and we do that even without a pandemic. And then one of the hardest parts of our job is to assist the family and community when we have a student die. And so if you you may get word of that through social media or know a student, please get that information to us so that we can act quickly as part of the institution.
It's not letting me switch. There we go. All right, everybody. Hello, I'm Officer David Causey with the UNT Police Department, and a little bit about our department. So currently right now we have 45 sworn officers. Our officers are licensed TCOL officers. TCOL stands for Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. So all of our officers are TCOL officers. A lot of people always ask about our jurisdiction and how that sets up. So our jurisdiction is set underneath the education code, and it gives us jurisdiction in any county that the university owns or rents property. So right now that's Denton, Dallas, Cook, Collin, and Tarrant counties. We are, another big thing that we're very proud of is that we are a dual accredited agency through CALEA and ICALEA. So what that is again, they're a third party agency that establishes best practices for professional police departments. They have multiple different standards that you have to meet to be able for them to accredit you. It goes off of it's like a 4-year cycle. Every 4 years we get a full reaccreditation where they come in and they go through our paperwork and they come and they ride with officers and talk to staff. And then every year in the November, so right now we're kind of working through that, is we send them proof. So it's not that we just say that we cover something. If it's one of their standards, we have to send them documentation that our officers have met that standard. We're set into 3 different service areas. We have field services, which are our patrol officers, excuse me. They're here 24/7, 365. We have our investigative services, which are our detectives. And then we have our support services that falls with IT, communications, training, accreditation, and community relations. Myself is under the support services. There we go. Just kind of jumping. Another thing that we're very proud of is that more than half of our department are UNT alumni, and many of our children go to UNT as well. And we're a big part of the community. We're not just a department that comes, works, and then leaves. That we have a vested interest in UNT, and we are part of this community.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Well, my name, as I said earlier, I'm Julie Elliott. I work with Emergency Management Safety Services. Our mission on campus is to help promote and support a culture of safety and emergency preparedness throughout the entire UNT campus. So kind of what that looks like, a big part of it is outreach and education. So doing events like this, getting out in front of you folks to educate you, provide you the resources you need. One of our other big responsibilities on campus is 24/7, 365 weather monitoring for campus. So we always have a staff member on call specifically to watch the weather for campus. In the event there is severe weather, we post about it on our social media pages, as well as other resources too. And so we also are available to monitor for special events. We also do a lot of emergency planning across campus. So if there's ever a department that has maybe emergency preparedness, disaster related concerns, we will kind of do some consulting and help them come up with a plan specifically for their department, for their office that fits their needs and helps their staff, their students, their faculty to feel safer. So that's really one of our big roles too. Part of our office also does the fire and life safety protocol for campus. So that involves doing fire inspections for every building on campus, as well as maintaining our AEDs on campus. So what, I'm not sure if all of you know this or not, but every building on campus does have an AED. So we kind of monitor those, inspect them monthly to make sure that they're operating and functional, all of that good stuff. So really just anything related to safety and preparedness probably has some connection to our office. So I always tell people, when in doubt, you can start with us and we can at least point you in the right direction. So thank you all again for being here today. And that concludes our introduction. So Mo, if you want to take over, I will give you control of my screen again, and hopefully it works this time. And then you can go ahead and go through your presentation. All right, you should have control now.
That's always dangerous. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so want to talk to you about a couple different situations that you might need our assistance with when it comes to safety and security. You know, we all say that most of us are old enough to know how different higher education has been since Virginia Tech. And even education since Columbine, right? I never in my formative years had to do a drill to think about an active shooter. That was never something that I had to do. And I know many of our kids go through that now. And it's something that we have to be on the forefront of our minds in regards to running operations. And so many times we see situations where students may be disruptive in class. They may be disruptive in your office. And you know, rather than sometimes you do have to call the police, but other times you can just report it to us. There have been times where people are so disruptive, we tell them they can't go to that location, that they have to work through our office to communicate. We've had to have that with financial aid and student financial services. And so we try to explain to students, just because you don't like the answer doesn't mean you get to treat somebody with a lot of disrespect and possible anger issues. So we have a lot of conversations. We also hold students accountable to the Code of Student Conduct. Disturbing and disruptive behavior sometimes can cause a major alarm for a lot of people. I had a situation where I have a student before that would go to a certain office and say that he was a felon. Well, if you tell certain people that they're a felon, there's going to be some concerns. And so things that we have to pay attention to and use some coaching and some educational, but sometimes also holding people accountable for the code of student conduct is really important. And so we have conversations with students about expectations and being part of a community and making sure that they understand the purpose of higher education and why they're here, and why also they might scare somebody by making those kind of comments. And so we have that conversation with students often. We are seeing a lot more of it with social media, as you can guess, and in Zoom meetings. When we first started the pandemic, it was a Zoom bombing, right? And how do we know who is Zoom bombing? And that is when you interrupt a meeting. It's not actually bombing anybody. But we have to pay attention to that and the disruption that it might cause. We do help do some coaching. If somebody, an employee or a faculty or staff member, doesn't want to report it to us yet, they could call us and we can give them some coaching tips. And that person may already be on our radar already. And so to kind of help you along the way. There was a couple years ago, we had a situation where a student was very disruptive in class, but found out that he had an ODA accommodation that caused some of the disruption. And so getting them to our office and working with ODA on the the interference and the disruption, and getting the student the medication and the physician's physician connection that he needed so that the disruption didn't continue. And so there's sometimes reasons why there's a disruption we might not be able to see. And so it's always important that rather than just removing somebody from class or removing from an office, unless of course they're violent and the police are involved, to get us involved so that we can help you out. And we will usually talk to the student and close the loop with the reporting party. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. It takes a little bit to pop up. So students who are struggling, everybody's been asking us, are your care team numbers a bit higher this year because of the pandemic, and we are concerned with mental health. And ironically, they're not as high. They're probably off by about 20 at this point last year. But the things that we are seeing are much more labor intensive and much more concerning. And so we have gotten counseling and testing involved a lot. We have a number of other people involved. We call mom and dad. It seems like we're doing that a lot more than we have in the past. And we usually do that when somebody's either not being cooperative, getting the help that they need, or they have made some kind of attempt. The care team is a resource for assisting distressed students. And so we are not in the place of police and first responders. So we don't have paramedics. We don't have the fast cars with a bunch of lights, although I'd love to have one if Kazi wants to let me have one for a little bit. Okay. And we're not paramedics, right? And so we can't respond. When care team first started back in 2008, a lot of people would say, let's call the care team when we had somebody pass out from an anxiety attack, or let's call the care team if somebody was having a seizure. Well, that's not the role of the care team. Those are first responders. What we do is help intervene before possibly we get to that point of having somebody to have to call a first responder, possibly working with counseling and testing to get somebody hospitalized, or looking at patterns of behavior. We also know that sometimes mental health issues do create violence. And so looking at that piece, we do have a Corporal Keene, who works for the police department, is sitting on the care team, and he meets with us every Monday, as well as we talk to him on the phone pretty much every day, talking about different situations for the police to be helpful with. I'm going to caution you that when you are concerned about a student, that you don't go look at their social media. People always get scared when they see a paintball gun or a gun, and then they think, oh my gosh, this person's, a big threat, and then the care team's not doing anything. I want you to reassure you that we do our due diligence to look at every situation and work with the police in counseling and testing to evaluate if somebody should be on campus or not. And so don't ignore the signs, get them to us. We have a generation of students that believes that they should just put all their feelings out there. And so you as a faculty member may get an email that says, I tried to kill myself last night, so I won't be in class today. Or as a student employee supervisor that says something like that. Please get those things to us so that we can help that student first and foremost when it comes to safety. And secondly, making sure that, is school the right place for them? And if it is, helping them be successful. Disruptive faculty and staff. I know we don't have any of these, right, Kazi? But these disruptive faculty and staff, is there a disruption? And if so, that's more of a human resources or police kind of thing to handle, depending on how escalated it is and if they're not responding to the issues that they might have. Dean of Students doesn't really deal with disruptive faculty and staff. Now, our care team does have a member of human resources on it. And so if you do file something in regards to faculty and staff for care team and it's an employee, we do get that directly to Kate Van Zoff from Human Resources, or Katie McDaniel. And sometimes we see that, especially when we're talking about TAs and TFs or research assistants, so on and so forth. And so if you are concerned about behavior of a fellow colleague, know that there's help along the way as well. So, is this me or you, David? I can't remember, but we can probably both talk about it. It's me? Okay. So you all know about, well, I hope you all know about the Clery Act, which is a federal law that we must follow. It requires institutions of higher education to do a number of things, and that is first and foremost, release crime statistics in the daily crime log. The police department has the crime log and the crime statistics. Because of the pandemic, we were institutions were all given the extension of January 1st. Usually it's October 1st. And so you will probably get our annual security report the week of or the week after Thanksgiving. So you will get that then, and you can access that at any time at the Clery website at clery.unt.edu. We're also required to disclose and look at UNT's Clery geography. So is it on campus? Is it non-campus property? Is it public property? We won't go into that because that's about a week-long dissertation of trying to figure it all out. But just know the police are very well at figuring it out and what our guidelines are from the federal government. You may oftentimes get what we call timely warnings or emergency notifications. And those are things that we have to coach you on. I think we'll go into that a little bit more, but basically we have to warn university community should we believe that there's some kind of impending threat or emergency. And then again, we would release the annual security fire safety report, usually by October 1st of every year, but this year it's going to be in mid-November. I want to go back to sexual misconduct, dating violence, domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault. There's a number of different laws that talk about these things. Clery is one of them. Title IX from the federal government is another. And then the state has the sexual misconduct and dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking policy that we've adopted as an institution. I will tell you, our Title IX coordinator, if you don't know who she is, I want to make sure you do. Her name is Eve Shatine Bell, and she works for Equal Opportunity. She is basically the holder of all things Title IX and sexual violence, sexual misconduct. And her and our office and the police and human resources work together a lot to look at these kinds of issues and look at possible situations where we might have to act quickly as well as investigate. And so sooner or later, we'll probably need to make her part of this presentation because you know, everything and anything is becoming regulated under sexual misconduct. Talking about that in regards to one of the things that we see a lot, and David, you could jump in here anytime, is that about 80 to 90% of incidents do go unreported to authorities. One of the things we always say is call the police, and people don't think to do that. They're afraid of making it escalated to the police, when sometimes that might be the best course of action. I kind of have this internal clock that I say, if it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, if I keep thinking about it and it's bugging me to the point that I can't let it go, or if I feel like I have to talk to somebody about it because it's really bugging me, it might be something I need to report to somebody else or get the police involved, right? And so to me, those kind of signals are like our guardian angels. Hey, pay attention to this. And so pay attention if you get to a situation where you're not sure if it should be reported, but you're uncomfortable with it. There are a lot of us here between the police department, human resources, Title IX office, Dean of Students office, that are here to help coach you along the way. The police will never yell at you for filing a report, trying to file a report with them. Right, David?
That's correct. I was
Okay.
going to say real quick, since you asked, like, I cover this slide quite a bit, a lot of different things when I do the new hire orientation. So that's like twice a month. And one of the biggest things that every time I see this, that always jumps out at me is that last bullet point where it talks about that 90% of women survivors are assaulted by someone that they know. Because a lot of people, it's still that thought of that it's somebody, you know, it's the creepy guy or girl that's hanging out around your apartment complex or in the parking lot or something. And I'm not saying those people can't be a danger, but a lot of times what we see is it's somebody that you know. It may not be a close friend, but it may be somebody that you've had class with or somebody that you work with or something like that, that it's not usually a complete unknown person. So that's just something I always like to just kind of bring up too.
Absolutely. When I was younger, we used to give away rape whistles, right? Well, you can't use a rape whistle to when it's a friend or an acquaintance, right? Our thought process used to be it's somebody lurking in the shadows and they're going to rape me. Well, as you see by our statistics, that it's 90% that we know are impacted or assaulted by a friend. I think that's a great point, David. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So 3 in 10 women and 1 in 10 men. Men can be survivors of sexual violence and intimate partner violence. We do investigate that. And I want to make sure too, it's not just a crime or a incident that might happen between a male and a female. It may happen between a male and a male. It may happen between a male and a female. Those that identify as transgender, it doesn't really discriminate by sex and gender identity. So that's really important to make sure that everybody is aware of. So things that you want to be careful of or pay attention to. Some highlights here in regards to, what causes you, what might be some red flags in relationships or with friends. If somebody's checking your phone and email without permission, and I'm not going to talk about parents here of our students because I know that happens too. I have a friend whose husband all the time has to know where she is on Life 360. That relationship causes me some concern, and she makes decisions based on can she go there on Life 360, right? It makes me wonder what happens behind closed doors, and I pay attention to that a little bit more. Relationships where one partner might be constantly putting you down or being degrading, trying to control you. So jealousy and insecurity. Anger is definitely another one of those. Somebody that keeps you away from friends. I have these conversations with my young adult children often, and those kinds of things. David, did you want to talk about the other side?
Sorry, I was trying to get my mouse back over. Yeah, one thing too, like you were kind of talking about, is like what I would see a lot when I was on patrol and was taking these type of reports, is that a lot of times it wasn't somebody just like, taking your phone and saying, "Let me see your phone. Who are you talking to?" Because that's probably going to be a really jump out that's going to really set you back. A lot of times it's more of like a manipulation. Like where they'll, you're on your phone and they grab it from you just playing. They're saying, oh, who are you talking to? What's going on here? And they're acting like they're playing with you like it's a game. But what they're doing is they're taking that time to look through your stuff. So a lot of times it's a lot more of a mental manipulation. And just same with the separating you from your friends and family and things, is it's usually that, you're not going to go see Nancy this weekend. We've got stuff going on. That, it's going to be, hey, Nancy's really jealous of our relationship. I would just rather, how about if we just hang out this weekend? So a lot of times you see, again, it's that mental side where it's not just the forcefulness. Now that could be there, obviously, but a lot of times it's a little bit more mental manipulation, just so you don't, it's just a little bit of a wedge they start developing in there and they just keep pushing it apart.
And I do want to interject too. I know we've worked a number of cases of police in our office together where sadly, partners or former boyfriends or girlfriends put tracking devices on cars and on phones, and how that does impact and look at possible stalking issues and to the criminal level. And so making sure that if you hear that kind of stuff, that you're reporting it. We've had some pretty serious situations. Now I've been here a long time, so I have too many stories in my own head. But based on either employees or campus security authorities or mandated employees reporting things to the right people, we have saved people's lives. And you wouldn't think that way on a college campus, but I can go back and talk about a time where somebody whose employee was supervising a student who was really concerned her ex-boyfriend was stalking her, and she had left campus from work that one night, and she felt like she was following him. He had kind of disappeared for a couple months and came back. he followed her to her apartment off campus, so he learned where she lived. She got really spooked, called Denton PD. Denton PD and UNTPD and our office worked with her. The survivor advocate at the time was Renee McNamara. We got her into a safe room on campus, and her mom had come up from Corsicana overnight. Mom and the daughter, our student, had driven back to the apartment to get a couple things, and he had killed himself on her front porch. And so how important was that faculty and staff member intervened and got the police and got our office involved to take care of the student. And it's very tragic, but things like this happen. And so it's really important to bring it to the attention of the people that need to know. I hope you all know about our survivor advocate. The current survivor advocate is Esther Opong, and she helps students who are victims of any kind of violence, but in particular sexual violence and intimate partner violence, as well as students being stalked. It doesn't have to be that both parties are on campus or related to UNT, and it doesn't have to be that it happened now. She helps a lot of people that might have had childhood trauma get to the right places, including counseling and testing, and she works very well with them in regards to there's even groups for our survivors that work through Esther, and she works very closely with the police department as well. David, you want to say anything there?
I was gonna say, Esther's probably one of, besides you, of course, Mo, it's probably one of my favorite people over there. She's an amazing resource. She's always reaching out to us, and if there's things that we can do to help each other. So she's a great resource. And I know we talked about like just blaming others. Make sure that you're letting people. For me personally, as a police officer, it's always hard for me because I want everybody to report stuff to us so we can fix it. Because that's just, I feel that's just my role. That's just, I guess, in my mind or whatever. But if somebody's not wanting to make that report to us, at least get them, be there and be that listening ear for them. Maybe get them to Esther or Denton County Friends of the Family. Just get them some type of resources. But if they're not wanting to report to us, don't force them. Don't make them feel like that they have to report it. Just let them, make sure you're letting them to work through it at their own pace, but just definitely suggesting those different resources for them.
Well, and just to reiterate, you do have to report it to report.unt.edu.
That part. I'm sorry,
we give them the options for police, and a lot of them choose to, and a lot of them don't. But we have to, as an institution, work with it under either Title IX or Texas state law. So get them to us, and we'll get them the help that they need. And we have to also make sure they know about our obligation to. We are obligated to tell them about contacting the police. So just kind of talking about being an active bystander. If you see something, say something, right? We hear that a lot at the airports when it comes to safety and security. And so if something's not right, something's not sitting with you right that you might have seen on campus or on social media, make sure you get the right people involved in reporting it. All right, Kazi, this is you.
Sorry, it took me a minute to get back over there. Yeah, so this is some different ways for like some bystander interdiction. And one thing that I always really push towards people is is to make sure that you keep yourself safe. Don't put yourself in harm's way. There's a couple of different ways that you can go about it. And really my biggest thing is, you can, again, it talks about how you can directly intervene in a situation. But again, always the biggest thing is to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe and call 911. Don't put yourself in a situation that can make you be the victim as well. Whether you have to, you can always enlist somebody else, like delegate, get somebody to team up with you. Maybe in a distraction, say that, two people are arguing maybe at a table and you bump into them and you accidentally spill a drink or something like that, turn around and, oh, I'm so sorry, apologize. That may be enough to break that situation, that tense situation right there. But again, the biggest thing that I cannot say enough is to do not put yourself in a situation that causes yourself harm. The biggest thing that you can do is to call 911 and be a good witness. This is one of the sayings. Mo, do you want to talk some about the green dot?
I sure will. So we have trained faculty and staff members on our green dot. It's kind of been put in regards to continued training on hold right now with all the different pieces of things with COVID, because there's a lot of strict rules with an outside company on how you can present it. But what we do is Green Dot is an active bystander education program, and our goal a year is usually to train about 1,000 people on Green Dot and being aware of whether it's behavior that might be violent or cause harm or violent words. And so what the thought process is that when somebody is using harmful vocabulary or being tolerant of behavior, there's red dots, right? If you were to look at a map and have a red dot where somebody might have used harmful or violent words, and then an active bystander comes in and intervenes, and then puts a green dot there right on the map that, hey, this person said, you know what, we don't like bullies here, and you know, we don't like those kinds of things at the University of North Texas. And so how and what ways can we train people to be active bystanders without putting themselves in harm's way, right? But there are a lot of different ways. And I will tell you now with the election next week, I don't know if any of you are excited for next Wednesday or Thursday to get here, but I know I am. Just want it to kind of be done. But the things that you've seen on social media about violence and tolerance, right? And so my brother is very much one for putting memes out there that are really harmful about the election. And many times either I tell him, you know what, I'm going to block you and I don't want to see what you're having to say, or can I say, really, do you have to just be so mean? And I think sometimes that what that does is make him stop and think. And so where can you and how can you be a active bystander? I've had to do this a lot with my kids in explaining the different sides of things when they might be looking at you know, expanding, looking at I have a 17-year-old, and if that gives you any reason on why sometimes I have to intervene, because everything is a trigger. And many times we have to talk things through if she has come up with some actions or some behaviors that might cause me some pause. If you're interested in getting trained in Green Dot, just let us know in the Dean of Students office and we can help you.
All right, I think it is time for you, Officer Causey, to take over.
All right.
Thank you, Mo.
And could you give me
Yes. There you go. Should be good to go.
all right, awesome. I see it. Again, it's great to see you guys. And I am Officer David Causey. Here's my contact information, david.causey@unt.edu. Obviously, you could call us. 911 is our emergency number. You can call or text in Denton County. And you can visit us if you want to come to the PD. We're at 1700 Wilshire. We do have a lobby that is open 24/7, 365 as well. There we go. So obviously things have changed up quite a bit with COVID, but we still offer our free campus safety classes. Again, they're all completely free. We will do them through, I'll do them through Zoom. However you guys, whatever works best for you, whether it's a group of 30 or a group of 1 or just one person that wants that class, let me know, reach out to me, and we can do it just like we're doing here. We'll just do a one-on-one Zoom and I will get that information to you. Also, if there's something that you are interested in, that you don't see here or that you don't see listed, please reach out to me. And it's something that I will definitely develop for you and put that class on for you. You can see our full lineup at police.unt.edu. So we'll get started. Probably the number one thing, or actually the number one thing that I always say is to trust your instincts. Like Mo was saying earlier, if something feels wrong, it feels wrong for a reason. You know, if you think that somebody's following you and you you run in and you call 911 and we show up and we make contact with the person and we find out that it's, a custodial person that's just picking up trash or whatever the thing is, whatever's going on, we're not going to come to you and say, well, you shouldn't have called us on that guy. That's going to be a $100 charge or whatever, anything like that. We're there to take care of you. But if you feel like something's wrong, you feel that way for a reason. So make sure that you take action on it. Don't just think that, I'm just acting, it's just because it's dark, or it's just because I'm tired, it's just because of whatever. If you feel like something's wrong, take that into account and act on it. Also, always be aware of your surroundings. Make sure that you make eye contact with those in close proximity to you. And I know that you guys hear this from the police all the time. We say, watch your surroundings, beware your surroundings, look around, don't get lost in your phone. We tell you all of this over and over again. But the reason that we do, the biggest thing is that bad guys don't want to go to jail, right? They want to keep doing bad guy things. So if you're walking around and if you're walking around and you see somebody kind of over maybe in the corners, or somebody that's got your eye, if you look at them and you make eye contact with them, then if that person, wants to try to harm you, you have a couple of options. Maybe you're able to call 911 yourself before they're able to make that attack. Maybe you're able to just scream out for help. And, with UNT, with so many people being in such a small area, not as many as used to, but there's still a lot of people in this area that would be able to call 911 for you, or in the very least, you'll at least be able to give us a good description of where the person is. But just that's being able to look around and know what's going on around you. There were this was several years ago, because when I first started, I've been here for 9 years. So probably 7 years ago or something like that, there was a rash of people would be walking. This would happen in the broad daylight, but they would be walking and they would have their phone and they would look down at their phone and walking and talking. And this guy would run up and run by them and just grab their phone out of their hand and take off running. And so unfortunately they couldn't call 911 because the guy just stole their phone, but it would happen and they would just be kind of like in such shock that it happened. They weren't even able to give a good description of the person. And the biggest thing is because they were so lost in their phone and they weren't able to pay attention to see what was going on around them. Also make sure that you avoid secluded places. Walk in groups if possible. There's, always considered to be safety in numbers. So if somebody does want to cause you harm, but there's 4 or 5 people as opposed to 1, that makes you less likely of a target. Make sure that you're discussing safety with others. And that's something that you've got to do in advance. If you're going through an emergency situation, then that's not the time to discuss safety, right? You've got to make sure that you talk about it early, and you've got to make sure that you talk about it often. Because if you're going through if you're in a dangerous situation and you've only talked about it once in the last 6 months, then you're not going to remember that, right? Because you're going to get that adrenaline dump and you're just going to be in that fight or flight. Where if it's something that you talk about maybe monthly, or just whenever you get together, you kind of talk about it and keep it in the forefront of your mind, then when something does happen, you're better able to react. And that's kind of like the same with the home safety plan. Make sure you develop that home safety plan and make sure that you talk about it, and you talk about it often. So again, if something happens, that you're more prepared to be able to act. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter at UNT Police. We try to keep updated with what's going on. If there's certain things that we're wanting you guys to watch out for, we try to put it on through there. Another thing is to remember is that no property is worth your life. Things can always be replaced, no matter how nice your computer is, or your phone, or whatever. But things can always be replaced, but you can't. Always watch your Eagle alerts. We take it very serious whenever we send out an Eagle alert. You're not going to get constant Eagle alerts for just small things. It's going to be something that we really feel that you need to know, because we understand. I mean, we realize that if you get an Eagle alert for every little thing that happens, you're going to start just blowing them off. So we want to make sure that you realize that if you get an Eagle alert, it's something important, and you need to take the time to make sure that you check it. And you can go on at my.unt.edu or myuntsystem.edu for staff or students or faculty to make sure all of your preferences are set correctly. Make sure that you wear clothes and shoes that allow you to move freely, because of course, if you need to run, you want to be able to do so easily. Limit the cash and credit cards you carry. For me, I really don't carry much cash on me. it's just my nature over the years. I've grown to that way. And people often ask, they'll say, well, how much cash should I carry? And this always sounds harsh, and people always kind of look at me a little funny when I say, well, how much are you willing to lose? And they're like, well, I don't want to lose any. Well, I mean, I understand you don't want to lose any, but when you think about it, if somebody steals your debit card or your credit card, you can call your bank or you can call your credit card company. You can stop it, and most likely you can get those funds back. If you lose cash, it's pretty much gone unless there's somebody that returns it for you, right? So usually the only time I really carry cash on me is if I know that I'm going somewhere that I'll need cash, or if I'm going like I'll get some cash out probably for the holiday season for any traveling, just because I always like to have cash whenever I'm traveling. But other than that, if I have any large amounts of cash, like recently I sold my son's bike and I took that and went straight, put it in the bank, because I don't like to have large amounts of cash, because again, if somebody takes it or something happens, I mean, it's gone. And so I'd rather not do that. Carry your ID with you, but not your social security card. I'm sure you guys know the reason for this not keeping your social security card is because if somebody has your ID and your social, then they have a lot of the information they would need if they wanted to steal your identity. And then avoid using the ATM alone at night if possible. Always try to take somebody with you. Always lock your room, your apartment, your house, wherever you're at. Even if you're just running out to the car to grab a bag or run into the laundry room or whatever it is, make sure that you keep that door locked at all times. One of the biggest things, and I've talked about this too, is using your peephole and ask for ID or don't answer. Don't open that door. Just because somebody knocks on your door doesn't mean that you need to open the door and talk to them. Even if you're just trying to identify them and you crack open that door, once you do that, you're really breaking down that barrier between you and that person if they want to take advantage of you. Look through your peephole, look through the side window. If they say they're with Denton Municipal Electric or whoever, are they wearing like a DME shirt? Are they driving a DME truck? You can always call them and verify that that person is supposed to be there. I always tell the story. I think it was over the summer. It was one day somebody came up and knocked on the door, and we were sitting in the living room, and our living room is right by our front door. And the kids were in there, and they were like, "Hey, Dad, somebody's at the door." And I was like, "Okay." And I got up and I looked, and I couldn't really tell who it was, but it was somebody I didn't know, and I didn't call for anybody to come over to my house for any reason. So I went and sat back down, started watching TV again. And my kids were like, "You're not going to answer the door?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "Why not?" And I was like, "I don't know who it is." And they were like, "Well, he knows we're here." And I said, "Well, good. Then maybe you won't try to break into the house." The thing is that, again, once you open that door, you're really setting up, allowing somebody to bypass that barrier. So make sure that you're not opening the door unless it's for somebody that or something that you're expecting, and always do that follow-up. Limit who you allow into your vehicle or home. Same thing, your home is a secluded place. Like, nobody's going to just walk into your house for any reason. So if you've got somebody wanting to meet up with you or want to talk to you, meet them in a public place. If we have any students on here and you guys are in your dorm or something, take that out, take that discussion or whatever out to like a lobby or into a public place. Don't allow people into your room or into your house. Always make sure that you lock your vehicle around the campus. A majority of the burglary of motor vehicles that we have, majority of the car break-ins that we have, are generally from somebody leaving their vehicle unlocked. Generally, most burglars aren't going to break the window because that causes a lot of commotion, a lot of noise, and it's a better chance of them getting caught. Same with just around the city of Denton in general. Most of those car burglaries are people walking around and just checking door handles and seeing if somebody left something unlocked. Make sure you're securing those valuables out of sight. If somebody's looking in your car, you want them to know that there's nothing in your car that they want, and you don't want to risk them damaging your vehicle to get it. If you ride a bike, make sure you lock it to a bike rack. Make sure you use a U-lock or a heavy-duty chain. Don't use the real thin, especially the real thin cable locks, or any cable locks in general are pretty easily defeated. So make sure you go with like the U-locks or the heavy-duty chains. Always make sure you keep your phone with you and make sure that it's charged. Use that phone as a lifeline. Don't use it as a distraction. When you are listening to music or talking on your phone, again, that's going to distract you from what's going on around you. And then make sure you don't text and drive or text and walk, because again, you're distracting yourself from whatever else is going on, especially if you're around the UNT campus with the amount of drivers and cyclists and pedestrians we have at any one time. You want to make sure that you're being able to fully focus on whatever you're doing right there. And then be careful what you share on social media. If you have a, if you're going to work for, if you got a long day at work, don't say, hey man, it's going to be a long day at work, because then people know that you're going to be away from your house for a while. Wait till you come back and say, man, this was a long day. I'm really glad to be home now. Right. So just kind of think about it that way, and not in how much you're revealing. So E-Ride is not a service actually provided through the police department. It's through our partners over at Transportation Services, but it's such a great service that we always make sure that we mention it. It is overnight service within a geofenced area right around the UNT campus. So from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. E-Ride's from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. At some point, Lyft actually picks it up, and they will come and pick you up and again take you to that geofenced area. And that is why school is in session. I believe it ends December 11th of this year. That's something that you want to make sure, if you think it's something you could ever possibly use, call them or go to their website and figure out all the intricacies of what you need to do. So if you do need to use it, you have it available for you. We do have emergency phones around campus. Now, again, I strongly encourage you to keep your cell phone charged and make sure that you're paying attention, because the last thing I want is if somebody's trying to harm you, for you to stand outside a building at one of these emergency phones. I would much rather you find a public building or a building that's well lit with people inside, because again, you're less likely for somebody to try to take advantage of you there. But if that's not an option, maybe you don't have your phone, maybe you're in an area where there's not a building that you have access to, then these are a good resource for you. So all you have to do is you push the red button. Once you hit that red button, it automatically puts you into contact with a member of UNT PD dispatch, and then the blue light will start strobing. As soon as you hit that red button, it's automatically going to send a hit, I guess, for lack of a better term, to dispatch. So they're going to automatically dispatch an officer before you even say anything. It's going to officer's going to be en route, because they're going to see it come up and it gives them the location of that phone. So even if nobody talks into that phone, an officer is still going to be sent to the area of it. So a lot of people ask, they talk about, self-defense, or excuse me, not self-defense, but like stuff that they can have to help keep them safe. So in all the time that I spent on patrol, my biggest thing that I always say is a flashlight. And I think, y'all are thinking that flashlight doesn't look like it's big enough to really do much. But the thing is, it goes back to what we were talking about before, is that if you can shine the light on somebody, it shows them that you see them, you're able to describe them. They're not going to be able to get away with anything. The problem that I have personally with pepper spray is that I have been involved in a couple of pepper spray incidents over my time at UNT PD, and there was never a time that I was the intended target, except for one, and that was when I was in the academy. There was never a time that I was the intended target, but there was also never a time that I did not get at least some of that spray on me. And I don't know if anybody else here has ever been pepper sprayed, but it makes it where you can't see, you can't breathe. And the last thing that we want is for somebody that's trying to harm you, that you've sprayed them, you've gotten spray on yourself, here you are, you can't breathe, you have snot and you're crying, your eyes are closed, and you're still just a few feet away from somebody that was trying to harm you. Same with the stun gun, because that's something that you actually have to touch somebody with. When you're talking about a stun gun, and what most people would carry would be that, where it doesn't have the prongs like a taser, it actually has the 2 points of contact that you have to use. So that's getting really close to somebody, again, that's trying to harm you. Hopefully once COVID, always looking past, but I always look to the future, but once we're past COVID, we'll be able to have some more self-defense classes, get those going again. I'm definitely looking forward to being able to do some of that. So be on the lookout. Hopefully if that start clearing some of the stuff up, we can get some of those classes going again, give you guys some more hands-on stuff. Now we're going to talk a little bit about active threat. There is an entire hour-and-a-half presentation just on active threat on our YouTube channel if you're interested in it. So what we teach is the run, hide, fight. But one of the biggest things that Sergeant Crawford used to always talk about, when he said it the first time, I was like, man, that's really eye-opening to me, is that you have to, before the run, hide, fight, you have to realize that there's a danger. You have to realize that something is actually going on. In the Vegas nightclub shooting, when they heard the shots, they thought that it was the DJ's music. It wasn't until they saw people actually running to them that they realized that there was something going on more than that. So the best thing that you can do, if it's possible, is to run. Run is the best thing, because if you're not there, then you can't be a victim of opportunity. But you may not always be able to run. So it's not a sequential order. It's just whatever is best for the situation that you're in right then. Now make sure that you don't evacuate if it makes you target. So me personally, obviously you can't see where I'm at, but I'm in an office and I've got a narrow hallway right out here. So if the shooting were to happen out in that hallway, I can't run, because if I run, then that puts me right in the shooter's line of target, and I will most likely become a target of opportunity. Consider the location of windows, doors, stairs. What are other exits that you could use besides the main one? I always think of, like, if you talk about say a Walmart or Target or Kroger's or any kind of large store like that, right? They've got their main entrances. And so if you're in a place like that and somebody comes in and in an active threat situation, look for the other ways out. Don't look to go to the front. Look to go maybe towards the back. So I guarantee you, if you go out the back where the stock room is, there's going to be some emergency exits back there that can get you out. So look for all those kind of areas. Don't look for where it's going to funnel people down, because an active shooter is most likely trying to take as many targets as possible. So always look for those secondary exits. Kind of pay attention to while you're there. It's like, this is where I would go, or I would do this, and just have that in your mindset. Help others evacuate if you can, and then avoid blindly running into the unknown. Kind of take your time when you're checking corners, just because you don't want to put yourself out there automatically. Kind of just think about it. We're not saying walk slow around the corner. We're saying just kind of give it a little bit of a peek before you run blindly out there. And then think about it before there is danger. If you're in a building often, think about, okay, if this were to happen, what would I do now? Or just have that plan in your mind. Maybe. There it goes. Sorry, it took me a little bit to get that one going. So you may not always be able to run, because we talked about, like, we're talking about, just like if you're in my office, there's a narrow hallway here. If the shooter's out there, if I can't run out there because I'm going to be a victim of opportunity. So shut the door, lock it if possible, and then just start piling stuff up, because what you're looking to do is to delay or deny access to you. You're not trying to wait out a tornado warning or something like that. You're not going to, you may be in the room for a while before the police fully clear it, but that situation is going to be over quicker than that. And so again, whether it's filing cabinets, whether there's chairs, whether there's desks, you don't need to make it look nice and pretty. Again, you're just trying to make it where if the shooter starts trying to come to you, he realizes that, hey, I've only got so much time and I'm not going to be able to get through this door. So he moves on. Shut off lights if possible. Stay away from windows and out of the shooter's view. So block the door, get back, get low, and get out of the way. Silence is also important. You want to do anything that's going to make them want to come into your area. So try to remain calm, stay as quiet as possible, turn off your phone or turn it down. Even turn off the vibrate, because in a quiet building, something like that, even they're going to hear that sound of that vibration. So just make sure that you try to be as quiet as possible. Now, you may not always have that opportunity. You may be forced into the fight. And again, this is one of those, like, if you only take the fight if you had to. So if, again, we're in the office and the shooter's out in the hallway, of course, now I'm not a police officer, right? If the fight's out there, I'm not going to run out there and take the fight to the shooter. I'm going to wait until I have to use the fight. I don't want to just do it. So if I'm here, it'd be like if I was in here and I was on the high and they start forcing their way in, or maybe I don't have the opportunity to get everything blocked up before they start coming in, or maybe I'm out where the shooting happens. So what you have to think about is it's one or two shooters against the many. If you decide to take that action, you must fully commit to it. And then look around at what you could use as a weapon, whether it's pens, notebooks, keyboards, mugs, anything like that, and be aggressive. Make sure that you attack with a plan, be aggressive, but know what you're trying to accomplish. If you're outside, try to use a direct route to escape, but first you got to try to figure out where the shots are coming from. So if you're looking down and you're seeing bullets bounce off the ground or things like that, that's where you realize that you're within the kill zone, because you're obviously in an area that could be targeted. So start looking for a direct line and try to figure out if you can see where it's coming from. Maybe it's muzzle flash or something like that. But start running, get a direct line, and get your way out. All you can consider cover or concealment. So cover is going to be that actually is something that's going to stop the bullets, actually protect you from the bullets. Something like, cinder block walls, trees, buildings, things like that. Then there's concealment. So concealment's not going to actually stop a bullet, but it's something where they couldn't see. That could be a bush, that could be a wall if it's like drywall, something like that. So witnessing, if you're calling us, one of the biggest things on UNT campus to remember is location, 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 location. So if something's happening in the union, whether it's a disturbance or whether it's a medical emergency, we need to know exactly where you're at. If you just say, I'm in the UNT union, that's a large area, especially when we're talking about responding to either a crime or somebody in need of a medical emergency. Tell us that you're on the 4th floor. Tell us that you're in the dean of students office. Tell us that you're over in front of Chick-fil-A, or if you're down in the corner store, wherever it is, give us a specific location. If you're talking about a suspect, give us the direction that they're headed. If you can take a picture safely, then do so. Whenever you're describing a person, we say to use a top-down approach, and do that every time. Kind of walk through a few days and kind of look at people in that way. And that way, if you need to, that you're more able to do so. So race and gender, and then just a top-down approach. So like for me, white male, bald, beard, a lot of blue, right? Pretty simple. And just get those, and then get those things that stand out. Maybe they, have like a tattoo on their face, or maybe they, something that, again, that really stands out. What separates that person from everyone else? Whenever you're describing a car, color, make, model, license plate. License plate's great because it gives us the address and the registered owner. But if you could tell me that it's a 2016 Maxima, I would much rather know that it's a black sedan missing the rear bumper, right? Because if I see a black sedan missing the rear bumper, that's a clue that I probably need to go and investigate, and that's the car that I'm looking for, right? So it's the thing, what's going to help me realize that that's the car versus all the other cars that are driving around. So how do you contact us? If your life is in immediate danger, or if there's ongoing crime right then, call 911. You can also text 911. If you need to report a crime that has already happened, or if you just want to talk to us or get some info or speak to an officer about something, then 565-3000. You can also visit us at police.unt.edu to look at that 60-day crime log that Dr. McGinnis talked about. Also to see some of the safety, or see the list of the safety classes. You can also report a crime through there. Again, you're more than welcome to come up to our office at 1700 Wilshire. If you want to get rid of any old prescription medicine, we have a med return box. We have an exchange zone. We have exchange parking out front, but you're also more than welcome to use the lobby, or if you need to do a bike engraving. And there is also, we have a Crime Stoppers that if you want to report anonymously as well. All right, this is you, Miss Julie.
Thank you so much, Officer Causey. I will go ahead and get started then. Like I mentioned earlier, my name is Julie Elliott. I work with UNT Emergency Management. So I'm going to quickly talk you through just kind of some ways you can be prepared for your large scale emergencies.
Hey, Julie.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I can't hear you. I don't know if anybody else can.
Can someone send in the chat?
I can hear you, Julie.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on then.
Hey, Mo, can you hear her?
I'll just be sure to talk a little louder. Let's see if that helps any. Okay, I can see some people talking in the chat.
Causey, maybe you're just not meant to hear her. Maybe she's tuning you out.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Okay, well, I'll keep going. And if at some point I cut out completely, y'all can just start shouting at me and I'll fix it. Like I said, Julie Elliott, Emergency Management. So I'm quickly to talk to you about disaster preparedness, the different things you can do to be ready for a disaster, whether on or off campus. The number one most important thing is to make sure that you have multiple resources. I always tell people there's really no way to be prepared to respond to an emergency if you have no way of knowing an emergency is happening. So it's really important to make sure you have multiple resources. So here on the screen, you'll see a list of some options here. I'm going to go through each of these a little bit more in depth. Going to give you some more context. The first, of course, is Eagle Alert. I hope everyone on this call knows what Eagle Alert is and is still enrolled in it. Just by being affiliated with UNT as a student, faculty, or staff member, you're automatically enrolled in the system, so you don't need to do anything unless you do change your contact information. So if your email address changes or your phone number changes, you'll need to update that at myunt.edu for students and faculty, or my.untsystem.edu for staff. So whenever we do activate that, it does send a phone call, text message, email. It also does a thing called desktop override, which for those of you who are staff members or faculty with computers, it will terrify you when it pops up. You can see a picture of it here on the screen. I usually know it's coming and it still scares me every time we set it off. But just to make sure that you get the message, something's happening. Kind of, Kazi alluded to earlier, is we take our Eagle Alerts very seriously. So when you get them, it's a big deal. We do test them once per semester, so hopefully everyone received their Eagle Alert just a few weeks back. The other two most common reasons you would receive an Eagle Alert is for, unfortunately, tornado warnings, because we are in Tornado Alley. Also, you would get them if we ever closed campus for inclement winter weather. So we have no idea if that'll happen this year. Some years we get multiple, some years we get none. So I guess we will find out. There's also outdoor warning sirens here on the UNT campus. Our office does not operate these sirens. They are City of Denton owned. They do set them off the first Wednesday of the month, every month, just to test them. Unless there's bad weather, then they push that test the next month. But if you ever do hear the sirens, our recommendation is to immediately go indoors and tune into KNTU 88.1 and monitor local sources. So these are most commonly known as tornado sirens, but I like to tell people these can be set off for other reasons as well. So anytime you hear them, no matter what the weather's like outside, go ahead and get indoors, tune in to find out exactly what's going on. Our office also has an app. This is a great resource to have. We have emergency floor plans for every building on campus. So in a crunch, if you needed to find out where your tornado shelters are, where your areas of refuge are, where your AEDs are located, we have those floor plans on the app, easily accessible. We also have guidelines for various types of emergency situations. So if you've ever wondered what to do if there's a gas leak on campus, for instance, you can refer to the app to quickly find that. We also have a function in there where you can create your own personal emergency plan. That's one of the big things we advocate for, is take the time to do some household preparedness. Prepare your family. I know Kazi alluded to that earlier in his portion of the presentation. So I definitely recommend downloading that, checking it out, available for both Android and Apple. We're also on social media, so Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you happen to be on any of those platforms, definitely recommend following us. I think the best component of those platforms is that if there ever is severe weather on campus, we post about it on our social media. So it's just a really great way to stay up to date in the event there is something like a severe thunderstorm or flash flooding occurring on or near campus. We also have a website. Basically all the information I just shared with you, you can find it on there as well. It's easy to remember. It's just emergency.unt.edu. So definitely check it out if you ever have questions or concerns. And so kind of jump into the quick guidance portion of my presentation, kind of the main tips I want you to take home with you. In any disaster, there's really going to be three main actions that you may have to take. The first being evacuate, second being shelter, and the third being lockdown. So really what we say is in any large scale incident, it's going to be one of these three actions. And so we really try to focus on actions rather than focusing on hazards, because there are just too many hazards to talk about in just one presentation. It's actually easier to educate you on the different actions that you would need to take in the event something occurred. So first is evacuate. I hope everyone on the call knows what it means to evacuate, but really all that means is to move from one location that is unsafe to another location that is safer. Really the main things you may need to evacuate for is if there was a gas leak, for instance, or a hazardous materials release, which some of these buildings on campus do contain hazardous chemicals because of labs. So you never know when that may occur. Another reason you may need to evacuate is if there is a bomb threat in the building. But of course, the most common reason is if a fire alarm is set off. And I imagine most of you have experienced that at some point. So to be prepared to evacuate, it's important to take the time to know all of your building's exits, especially because oftentimes in an evacuation, your normal escape route may be inaccessible. So we recommend recognizing at least 2 exits that may not be as common, that you may not use as frequently. So in the event that your normal route was inaccessible, you have a backup. We also recommend making sure you take the time to learn your evacuation assembly area. So this is where you should go and gather while you wait to get the all clear from first responders. So we have designated evacuation assembly areas for every building on campus, and you can look that up on our app also and on those emergency floor plans on our website. We also recommend making sure you take the time to back up all of your important information. Make sure it's secure in the event you do need to leave your computer or paperwork evacuating quickly. So make sure you're ready to go at any time. And take the time to learn how to operate emergency equipment. Sometimes you can prevent the need to evacuate if you're able to quickly put out a fire. So learn how to use a fire extinguisher. If you'd like to know more, learn more about that, please reach out to me. We do work with UNT facilities to offer a fire extinguisher training, and hopefully as COVID calms down, we can start to offer that service more. We're more than happy to provide that to you or your team, your group, whoever may be interested in that. So whenever you are alerted to evacuate, to quickly leave the building, taking the quickest and easiest way out. Help others evacuate if it's safely possible. Of course, never put yourself in danger. That's really very important for you to remember. We recommend taking note of anyone who may be trapped, anyone who refuses to leave, because there certainly will be individuals that refuse to leave. Anyone who may have a disability or may be trapped in the building, unable to evacuate, take note of those people so that when first responders get there, you can share that information with them. Go to your designated evacuation assembly area and don't return to the building until the fire department or police department has given you an all clear and says it's safe. Some important tips about fire. The very first one is to always, always, always take alarms seriously. I know that there are some buildings on campus that seem to have fire alarms that are just prone to go off at random times, very inconveniently, especially buildings that are undergoing construction. So you can experience a certain level of alarm fatigue, but I do encourage you to fight through that. I always tell people that if you wait to find out if the alarm is real or not, it may be too late to get out of the building. So it's important to take them seriously the first time to go ahead and evacuate. And those who are faculty and staff, you're really setting the example for your students in the building. So you need to demonstrate to them that it's important to take those seriously. When you are evacuating, just don't take the time to investigate the fire. Never use elevators. That's always a bad idea. Don't take the time to gather up all of your belongings. Grab what you can, but don't spend a lot of time doing that. And then do not open windows or leave doors open as you're leaving. By closing those, you actually cut off oxygen source to the fire, which actually may prevent the fire from spreading further. All right, to move on to shelter. Shelter is, of course, going into the safest part of the building and making it, and basically staying in there until it's safe to go outside. Really, there are 2 big things that you would need to shelter in place for. The first is for a hazardous materials release. In the event where we had, some kind of gaseous or some other material escape into the atmosphere and it was unsafe to leave the building, it was better to stay inside. Or, of course, what is much more common would be for a tornado warning and other severe weather. Those are probably going to be much more common here on our campus. So to prepare to take shelter, just make sure you know all of your shelter locations in your building. Like I mentioned, I recommend looking them up on the Mean Green Ready app or on our website. And then make sure that you have multiple means of receiving alerts. So in addition to the Eagle Alert, I recommend signing up for City of Denton Code Red or City of Frisco Code Red if you happen to work in Frisco. You can also look at Denton County emergency alerts to get alerts if you do live in the county. And I just believe Collin County has a similar service also. So definitely make sure you have multiple means of receiving alerts in case one malfunctions for some reason. And if you are alerted to take shelter, you need to go to your nearest shelter location. And really, obviously, we do have designated shelters, but if in a crunch, you just need to get to a place that's safe, you really want to go to a room that has no windows, no exterior walls, no exterior doors. And then if we're talking about hazardous materials, you want it to have very little ventilation. If it is hazardous materials related, you really want to, as you can see, locking these windows and doors, sealing gaps, pulling down blinds, turning off lights. You really want to prevent all outside air from getting into the space. So that's really kind of what we're looking at and why that external ventilation, why you don't want that in a space. Obviously for severe weather, that's not necessarily as important of a requirement, but really you just want to stay away from glass or external walls. And then you're going to stay in that shelter area until an Eagle alert is sent informing you it is safe to leave. I know whenever we have tornado warnings, we often get lots and lots of questions of, how will I know when it's safe to leave? Some good news, this is part of our new protocol now here in our office. We've only used this on one tornado warning. We haven't had a chance to use it further, but it is now part of our standard process to send an all clear Eagle alert whenever the coast is clear. So just know that next time, knock on wood, hopefully you don't have to get one, but if and when you do get a tornado warning Eagle alert, just know there will be a follow-up Eagle alert to let you know that you are safe to leave. So about the weather, I like to highlight this because it's a big deal for our office. UNT is a storm-ready university. In order to be designated as such, we had to meet some pretty strict protocol put together by the National Weather Service. So we're very proud to talk about how storm-ready we are, and part of that goes into this amount of education that we do on the topic, as well as our on-call schedules that we maintain here. I like to highlight too, I know watch and warning can be a big topic that trips a lot of people up. Really, the best way to remember is a watch means that conditions are favorable for hazardous weather. So watch out, something may happen. You can continue with your normal operations, just be aware that the conditions are right. Whereas a warning means you should take action immediately. If you are in that warning area, this means that hazardous weather has been spotted or indicated. So you can kind of see this graphic here in the bottom right side of your screen. This can kind of demonstrate a watch is this really huge yellow area here. And you've got the house number 2 here that's in a watch, whereas you've got house number 1 is here in a warning area. These people, number 1, need to be taking action for their safety. Number 2 just needs to be aware in case a tornado pops up that does impact them. Lightning, so believe it or not, no place outside is safe during lightning. It doesn't matter how close if you can hear thunder outside, doesn't matter if it's, a few miles away or right up near you. If you can hear thunder, it's not safe to be outside. So the saying is, when thunder roars, go indoors, and it sounds cheesy, but it's very true. If you do hear thunder, get inside. If you've got an outdoor event, bring that indoors. And then we recommend staying inside until 30 minutes after the last roll of thunder was heard. I know a lot of people that I talk to think that this is crazy, but it's true that lightning is one of the most unpredictable and dangerous sides of weather. So it's really important to take it seriously and respond appropriately. So I already talked a little bit about tornadoes, but I just wanted to reiterate that if there is a tornado warning that impacts UNT or UNT at Frisco, you do send out a Eagle alert. So whenever you get those, take shelter and don't leave until you get an all clear. And then I also just like to highlight this picture here. This is from the March 2019 tornado that we had here in Denton that touched down on Texas Women's University campus. So if anyone's familiar with the UNT Square, this is Mellow Mushroom down here. We've got Dan's Silverleaf, and then over here is Rusty's and Fuzzies and some other place. Anyways, there's the tornado there. You can see it touching down. So I'd like to just kind of bring it home a little bit with some real life examples of the severe weather that we do get here. For winter weather, I just like to reiterate that we do monitor these inclement weather conditions. And if we ever do close campus or if opening is delayed, we will send an Eagle alert. So if you're ever wondering if campus is open or closed, just wait for that Eagle alert. That's how you will know. And if you want to know more about this, just visit unt.edu/weather. Lots of information about our inclement weather procedures. All right. Finally, I want to talk about secure in place, or otherwise known as lockdown. And really what this means is putting a locked door or other barricade between yourself and the external of a building. And really we would direct you to go into lockdown if there was some kind of widespread criminal activity that was causing major concern, or if there was a violent protest or demonstration where really it just wasn't safe to be outside of a building. So the way to prepare for this is to make sure you know what areas in your building or in your dorm, in your apartment, in your home that can be locked. You want to make sure you've got a safe zone in each area that cannot be seen from outside the room. You want to be able to hide and make it look like no one is home. If you're ever ordered to lock down or secure in place, one or the other, you want to lock and barricade doors. Get into the most interior room of your home or building. You want to turn off the lights, silence phones, draw the blinds. I tell people, make it look like no one's home. And then you'll also want to barricade rooms with furniture to provide added protection. This really kind of reminds me of the hide section of Run, Hide, Fight. You need to make sure no one can get into the building, into the room, or force their way in. And you'll want to stay into that location until you get an all clear message. Very quickly, because we do get a lot of questions about this, I want to talk about medical emergencies. The very most important thing, if you are experiencing a medical emergency, or if you witness somebody who's experiencing a medical emergency, is call 911. Get first responders on the way. Make sure that if you want to provide assistance to somebody, you want to make sure that that is not going to put you in danger. We never ever advise people to put themselves in harm's way. So you just want to take a moment to check before jumping out to assist somebody. We also recommend getting the AED, the automated external defibrillator. These are used to treat sudden cardiac arrest. Even if you're not sure if an AED is needed, it's always good to just send a bystander to go retrieve it just in case it is necessary. And make sure you ask the person who's injured if you are allowed to provide them assistance. You need to ask their permission before you do. And if they say no, then you just need to stand back and just be available in case they do need something. You'll want to send someone to meet first responders at the door. And I'm sure many of you know that there are some very confusing buildings on the UNT campus. So it's always good to send somebody to all of the main entry points to help guide first responders to the location. You want to make sure you gather information about the injury or illness so that you know what happened, kind of can build a picture of what occurred. And then after it's all said and done, you want to report the incident to Risk Management Services and make sure that they are aware about it. And I think the last slide here includes Risk Management Services contact information. All right, so for your minor medical emergencies, this is another big question we get as well. If you witness somebody who has a minor injury of some kind, provide first aid if both appropriate and able, and if the individual is okay with it even. And then encourage them to go to the Student Health and Wellness Center here on campus, especially if they're a student, that's where you would want to send them. That's just a great resource that we have here on campus. We definitely need to use it. Or urge them to go to an urgent care if they're a faculty or staff member. And then whether it was a minor or major medical emergency, it's important to report that incident to Risk Management Services every single time. All right, well, that is all that I have for you folks. Thank you so much for being here and listening in today. We're going to take a second to review the chat and see if there were any questions that we can answer while we're here on the call. I'm also going to throw up here just some contact information. So take a screenshot of this if there's any groups that you do want to reach out to and circle back with. I'm going to put my contact information in the main chat in case anybody would like to save that and contact me later. One of the things our office does do is offer tons and tons of training and educational materials. So if there's anything I presented that you have questions about, would like to learn more about, please do contact us. Right. Mo, Kazi, do you have anything else you'd like to add here in the last few minutes while I look through our chat here?
Sorry, I was looking at the chat as well. I do not. If you guys need anything from me, I'll also put my information in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me if you need anything at all.
And I'm good too. Dean of Students at unt.edu is always the best. But if you want to get me directly, it's Mo, M-O-E at unt.edu.
And Kazi, have you had a chance to see the question in the chat? Do you happen to know?
I do not. I'll have to probably ask maybe access control. Maybe they would have more information, but I will follow up. I'll get your about the automatic door locks.
Great. We will follow back up with you on that question. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? You can feel free to unmute your mic.
I know the ones in the union have some kind of battery backup. I don't know if that's everywhere.
Great. Well, as always, if anyone has any questions later on, something pops into your head later, you can feel free to contact any of us via email or phone, I'm sure, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll stay on here a few minutes longer in case anybody has questions they'd like to talk through. But I thank y'all so much for coming today. I think that our first ever virtual safety and security seminar went as well as it could have gone virtually. So I thank you, Mo and Officer Kazi, for being part of this, and we really appreciate y'all being here.